What up? What up, friends and family? Welcome back to another edition of the Devy Dose. Did you guys like the intro? Matt, do you like the new intro?
I do. I like it. Very professional. I love it.
Kyle did good work there, and he picked a really good beat. I like it quite a lot. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just got off the slopes, so legs are a little jelly, but we're here. Sitting down finally, so a little better.
I'm a little jelly. I wish I got to ski in Colorado today. We don't even have snow in Massachusetts anymore. It's just like now we're like apparently like a mid-range state. Uh, Today we have the one, the only Matt Bruening at Sports Fanatic MB from the Campus to Canton crew with us to talk freshman quarterbacks. Matt,
Yeah.
what's going on, man?
Oh man, I'm excited to jump on with you guys. I feel like it's been a long time coming. I enjoy your guys your content, and I'm excited to talk about some quarterbacks. It's not a fun class, unfortunately. It would have been a lot more fun to talk about last year's class, but I'm excited to talk about the guys we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled to have you on. Obviously, plug in Campus to Canton. Kyle and I are both subscribers. We're what Godfather tier? We're grandfather tier.
Yeah, Godfather sounds better.
Yeah,
I pay even more. I paid for the whole package with the C2C winning edge and
winning edge.
NIL, so I'm in there.
Nice. You guys got anything new to plug right now, Matt? What are you working on?
We just dropped our 2024 returning production database, so you can go on there if you are a subscriber to the C2C Winning Edge like Kyle is. You can go in there and find out who is coming back for what teams, who is transferred. It's the only place that you can actually find that right now. ESPN hasn't dropped that. I don't remember who the other people are who does it, but it doesn't matter because we do it the best. So you can go there, subscribe to us, and you get all of that returning production data. Outside of that, we have our freshman guide, which we are in the works on right now. That will be released in the next, what is there? Is there 29 days this year? Is this a leap year? So probably it is. So in 26 days, that'll be dropping on March 1st. And then we have a new project I don't think I can announce that will also be dropping a little bit, as well as our Devy guide. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff in the works coming out over the next couple months. So
love it. Building some suspense. I'll say to you, I'm a data guy. I'm working on my models right now, and I'm building my models using data from your player data tools, which I used to get it somewhere else, but this is more convenient. I used to get it from Jarek, so pretty much from you guys anyways.
Jarek is the man. He is the reason Campus to Canton goes the way that it does. I'll say that.
Look, the first thing that impressed me so much about this site was just the plots. Everyone, like that's the best thing you guys ever did for yourself, because there's a lot of competent people, but being able to present the data in that relatable way, reshareable way, was a definite win early on.
Yeah, again, so that's all thanks to Jarek. All thanks to Jarek. Jarek is king.
All right. Enough gushing about you guys and what you do. Matt, you want to lead us in? Who is your number one quarterback in this 2024 class?
Yeah, so it's DJ Lagway, and I flip back and forth between him and Dylan Raiola. It depends on the kind of day of week I'm having, who's going to be number one. But I think DJ Lagway has the highest upside of those two. And we'll talk about Raiola here in a minute, but Lagway, extremely strong arm. We have him with a ball velocity of 53. So to give you guys an idea of that, the highest we have in our system is Josh Allen. Everybody who watches NFL knows how strong Josh Allen's arm is. Even coming out of college and from high school, he was throwing the ball with a ball velocity of over 60. So that's just how strong his arm is. So that's kind of what you're looking for, elite numbers. Anything over like that 54 range is really good. Lagway's right there on that spectrum, 53. He's also a very good athlete. We have him tracked at 20.9 miles per hour. He can use his legs. His father was a running back at Baylor, so he kind of has the NFL bloodlines that we know scouts look for and everything. Listed at 6'2", 230 pounds, 9.5-inch hands, so nice size hands there. And he can do it all. Why I waffle back and forth between him and Dylan Raiola is I feel like at times he does a little bit too much out of structure. You'll see he has this amazing play that went viral earlier this year where like he almost threw like a jump pass that ended up going like 60 yards in the air for a great touchdown. I don't know that he's going to succeed doing that at the college or even the NFL level. I think you can get away with that a little bit in the high school level. But again, he's an incredible athlete and he has the highest upside of the two. But I also think he has the lower floor, because if he doesn't figure out his mechanics, which I do think is a big part of something he needs to improve on and going to Florida, is his mechanics specifically from the waist down with his footwork. If he's not able to improve on that, then I do think he will struggle to be a fantasy guy and possibly an NFL draft pick moving forward.
Yeah, throw up some of his highlights from his senior year. Kyle, he's also your number one. Are you with Matt on the evaluation?
Yeah, I'm very much like Matt, waffling between him and Raiola. I think like 2 weeks ago I had Raiola as number one, and I went back and really looked a lot more at senior seasons leading up to this show, and that really pushed me to put Lagway ahead, just because Lagway's senior season was absolutely incredible, both statistically and on film. I mean, he won the Gatorade Player of the Year nationally, so just a super impressive season. I think he passed for almost 5,000 yards and ran for almost 1,000. So just incredible end to his high school career. And I think I don't think Florida's the greatest spot to learn mechanics, but we'll see.
Yeah. Very much in the mold of Richardson. Richardson has come out of it okay, we think. So, maybe a little bit of hope there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's and tell me if you agree with this, Kyle, a much better passer than Richardson, especially coming into the college level. I mean, he talked about his senior season. One of the bigger things for me, too, in his senior season was that improve on his accuracy. He went from a 67% completion percentage, which was not bad. It was 55 the year before. Like, he's increased every single year. Last year, that senior season that Kyle talked about him having that amazing season, 72% completion percentage. So, and in Texas, too. So, it wasn't like weak competition. He was playing really good teams, 58 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Like, he had a really amazing senior season. But I do agree with Kyle. Like, you have to be a little worried about Florida. I would say maybe good or bad. I don't think many people think Billy Napier will be back at Florida after this season, so maybe they get a coach in there who can help improve that, because it seems like Lagway is really committed to Florida, because he had many. I mean, Lincoln Riley was coming after him, and he said no to Riley. If you're a QB prospect, that's a really hard coach to say no to, so he clearly wants to be at Florida. They could bring in a coach to improve that. Definitely something to watch as well. But I mean, like Kyle said, that senior season was just incredible.
Yeah, I think compared to Richardson, compared to Richardson, I think one thing that really pops out to me is his ability to throw on the run. Coming out of high school, I think is a lot better.
So are you guys worried at all about him? I'm going to guess not just in Florida in general, specifically, but in general, him being able to improve as a passer to the point that he needs for the NFL. When I watched this tape, it looked like his ball placement was kind of all over the place on some throws. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have no arguments. Like, a fantasy football, like, the kid's a beast running, and he has an arm. Just the ball placement, accuracy stuff, I didn't love. Do you think I'm making too much of it, or do you guys think it's a valid concern? Because I just saw him as kind of like the floor. If he doesn't figure it out, is he doesn't get to start games at the college level.
Yeah, no, I definitely think the ball placement is an issue, and I think he can fire it in there. I talked about his ball velocity, but I do think at times he doesn't do a good job layering throws. Like, I think he tries to make it too perfect, almost is the way I'd put it. Like, it's almost like he's trying to place it when he just needs to kind of let it, not necessarily rip, but just throw it and kind of use that accuracy again, which we saw him improve on. But yeah, I agree. The ball placement is not great. But I don't know that that's one thing you can improve in practice. I think that is unfortunately something. It's just one of the things you have to improve in game time, in game. So whether Billy Napier is going to be the question. We saw what he was able to do. He didn't amplify Anthony Richardson's strengths, right? I mean, Anthony Richardson was arguably the greatest quarterback athlete we've ever seen, at least based on all of the testing numbers. And they never used him that way. Maybe some of that was Anthony Richardson wanted to prove he could win from the pocket. Don't blame him there. But I do wonder if the offense will hold him back a little bit. But I think live reps at that level will help him. And he's already such a good and gifted athlete in Lagway that I think he will be able to improve on that, even if Billy Napier is his coach for 3 years. It's really just going to kind of come down to, can they get him some weapons, an offensive line that can protect him to allow him to work in the pocket. But as Kyle mentioned, I mean, he can play out of structure. He can throw off platform, throw from different arm angles. It's just, can he make that succeed at the college level the way he did at the high school level?
Yeah, I think even though we don't like Florida necessarily for coaching, I think personnel wise, it works out. I mean, Mertz has one more year, and then it's his job. So I do think he kind of needs that year behind, not necessarily starting, but I think seeing him in a sophomore season is going to be really impressive.
Got it. I got one more question for you guys, or two. So one is here, unquestioned 101 in supplementals, and where are you taking him in a startup draft right now, roughly?
For supplemental drafts, he's not my 101. I would take Micah Hudson or Jeremiah Smith over him. I have both those wide receivers rated very highly. Micah Hudson, actually, I have both of them as the highest graded wide receivers that we've ever done. This will be the third year that we're putting out our freshman guide. So that includes guys like Zachariah Branch. For the life of me, cannot remember the class before him at the moment. But though, like Jeremiah Smith, Micah Hudson come in as the two highest graded wide receivers that I've ever graded since being at Campus to Canton. I also could see an argument for Dylan Raiola over DJ Lagway if you want the projectable one, but I do think he's at least a top 4 pick. I don't think you're taking any running backs or any other players outside of those 3 over him, and I don't have an issue with you taking him as a number 1. In a startup draft, man, that's tough. I would probably be fine taking him in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Maybe 2nd if you really believe in the talent. I know some people really like to grab those freshmen quarterbacks early, and I will say this year more than ever, both you I know play C2C league, so like for me, I feels like now more than ever the college landscape is so wide open. Like we've seen so much great talent leave college football, and there's so many questions right now around the college landscape with player talent that I'd be fine even taking them toward the back end of the 2nd.
Got it. Yeah, love it. I was going to say 3rd, 4th is when you tend to see the top freshmen come off the board, unless there's a Luther Burden, right, in the class or something like that. So fantastic. Kyle, anything else, or do you want to move on?
I just wrapped up a C2C mock put together by C2C's Dynasty PJ, and he went 305. So I think 3rd round's pretty fair.
Right. Who is next, my friends?
So next up is one Dylan Raiola, the Husker prodigy. So his dad played there, was a great offensive lineman. I don't think he actually has the statue outside Husker Stadium. I could be wrong on that. And then his uncle is the offensive line coach there currently. There was obviously all the talk that he was going to be going there. Let's just get the negative out of the way first. He has been all over the place since kind of coming on the scene as a sophomore in high school. He's played for 4 different high schools and has been committed now to 3 different teams. Was with, I'm for Georgia, Ohio State, and then it was with Ohio State first, then committed to Georgia, then flipped and went to Nebraska. So there are going to be people who question that. We have not seen players who typically flip their commitments that often really end up succeeding at the college level. There's no like science behind that. And I think Dylan Raiola, we just talked about it a minute ago, and Kyle mentioned he's like right there with him on Lagway as well. And Raiola, he is an extremely polished quarterback. And I think he has the safest projectable upside. A lot of people compare him in the recruiting space. If you look at like some of the recruiting websites, because of his ability to play out of structure and throw off platform from these multiple arm angles, make these great plays, people compare him to Patrick Mahomes. I personally think he's more of like a Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's got the size. He is a very good or I should say very good athlete, but he can make plays with his legs. He has negative rushing yards in high school, which for some of people on our team, that's a little concerning. I don't really think that's an issue. Listed at 6'2", 230 pounds. Can honestly just do it all. I think he's got some of the best pocket manipulation in this class with his ability to maneuver around the pocket. He can make every throw on the field, and it's with ease too. Like he can challenge all 3 levels of the field, and when he releases those deep balls, like he's not straining himself. It looks like a just nice, quick, easy throw. Really succeeds in the short intermediate areas of the field. Knows how to throw, take something off it. Knows how to throw over linebackers. Throw it with poise. Throws with anticipation, throws wide receivers open. Like he can literally just do it all. And the one thing I really like for him, which could be good, could be bad, is that he's likely going to be the starter for Nebraska next year. Like there's nobody in that room that I think is going to take over for him. So we get to see him right away. One of the things we've talked a lot about at C2C here of late is like we fall in love with these quarterbacks who go to schools like USC or Ohio State. And we'll obviously talk about two of them here in a little bit, thinking they're going to be the next guy up. And now with the way the transfer portal has changed, like we don't know what this is going to look like. I mean, last year, a lot of people loved Malachi Nelson because he was going to be Lincoln Riley's next quarterback. Well, now he's not Lincoln Riley's next quarterback, and he's gone to Boise State. We know outside of likely an injury, Dylan Raiola is likely going to be starting day one for Nebraska. So we get to see him. It could be a bad thing because we've seen some freshmen, you look at DJU Ungale was not a freshman. He was a sophomore, but that game against Georgia, I feel like really broke him. He looked like a good prospect before then. Maybe him getting thrown out there in the fire hurts him, but I think that he's going to thrive at Nebraska. I love the Matt Rule offense and what I know people have questions about Marcus Satterfield, but EK, you brought up the stats and everything that Jarrett puts together. If you go into our database and look at how good that offense was last year from an advanced statistics perspective, where like pass explosiveness, passing in neutral script situations were extremely high. And that was with quarterbacks like Jeff Sims and I believe Chuba Purdy played in the bowl game, like not good quarterbacks. You get a guy like Dylan Raiola who can sling the ball all over the field and I think is a polished quarterback prospect. Like that offense could be so much different. I'm excited to see him play, and I think he does have a chance to be the best quarterback in this class. He just doesn't have the physical tools that a DJ Lagway has.
Yeah. We got Kyle. Let's throw some highlights on.
I agree with everything Matt said. I think playing for Matt Rule should be probably seen as a good thing at the college level, despite his lack of NFL success, as we've all seen. But I mean, PJ Walker was his quarterback back at Temple, and he succeeded pretty well. Charlie Brewer was a freshman starter under Matt Rule at Baylor. I mean, that's not super impressive, but he was like a top 30 quarterback in yards in Matt Rule's last season there, and he's always had good collegiate offenses. So I think Raiola has a chance to succeed pretty early. But like Matt mentioned, those weapons might not be the best in the country. So I think that is something to watch. I mean, we need Malachi Coleman to take that next step, and some other guys to possibly step up.
Yeah. I know you said people say Pat Mahomes. That wasn't my thought at all watching him, but I thought the arm reminded me a little bit of Caleb Williams' high school tape, not his college tape, but just his high school highlights were just that same thing, just the effortless flicks of the wrist with these 30 and 40-yard passes over and over again, dropping him right in the bucket. That was really what I got out of watching his film. But I'm right with you guys. I think he's got. I thought his upside's immense. Honestly, I think he's got a real lot of talent, and you got to be concerned about Nebraska. I don't know. It's like you don't scout the helmet, but I don't know. I guess you got to look at Matt Rule more than the program, though, really, and that's get out of that mindset of looking at the program.
I mean, I think I've said this before, and I know some people think this is crazy. I legitimately think we will see. He's going to have. I would expect 3 years at Nebraska. He's going to take Nebraska to a playoff. I don't know if they're going to win a game in the playoffs, but I think he's that talented that he's going to be able to get them into a playoff in one of those 3 years. Like we've seen quarterbacks can change programs. And I know, you just mentioned Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams did everything he could at USC. That was a horrible defense. But I think Dylan Raiola is the kind of quarterback that can elevate a program. So I wouldn't be as worried about that part of it. It's more of playing teams like Penn State, Oregon, who just came over, Ohio State, who's had a pretty good defense, but Michigan, whose defense has been arguably amazing over the past. What does he look like in those situations? And you hope that those don't end up breaking him in a way because he doesn't have the help around him.
Right. For sure. I think he does have some ability under pressure, some escapability. So hopefully that will help him when the boys in blue are chasing him for his life.
Yeah.
Kyle, you got any parting shots on Raiola?
No, I mean, I agree, though. We do need to hope that he doesn't, have some tough games that kind of ruin his psyche. I feel like we kind of saw that with Dante Moore last year, too. So always tough as a freshman quarterback, but you got to hope that he can withstand it.
Got it. All right, gentlemen, moving on. What you got next for us, Matt?
All right, so my number 3 is not, I think, many other people's number 3s. And, okay, Kyle's only one spot away from me, so I like this. So I feel like he's going to like Luke as well. I love Luke Kromenhoek. He is, I've said before, and this is going to sound crazy because I just said this about Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway. I think he has the shot to be the best quarterback in this class with his tools. He has an explosive arm. Now, I forgot to mention Dylan Raiola's. We actually have his ball velocity at 55, so he's on that like almost – elite tier, and it's actually stronger than DJ Lagway's. Luke Kromenhoek's comes in at 53, so the same as DJ Lagway's. We have him at 19.1 miles per hour. I think that's too slow. You watch this kid play, like he can really make plays with his legs. He is a dynamic rushing threat. But more importantly, I think what he can do with his arm is what separates him. He can deliver passes all over the field. He's got those opposite hash throws. He throws with a ton of velocity, and he's got a very quick release, which is what I love about him. The biggest question I had for him is he has not played quarterback his entire life. In fact, Holden Grenier, who ended up committing to Auburn in a couple cycles ago, was the starting quarterback for him. He ended up playing wide receiver for his high school. I forgot what the name of it is now. Benedict. It's a military school. For life of me, I can't remember it.
Benedictine.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, he actually played wide receiver for them as a freshman because he wanted to get on the field, and he's that good of an athlete. He actually played defensive back for them as well, had an interception. Like, he is an incredible athlete, and he did that because Holden Grenier was starting at quarterback. He then came in and played 3 years for them at starting, won them a state championship. He is an incredibly talented player, and I love even more so the fact that he is going into, hopefully, Mike Norvell's offense. I don't think Mike Norvell's going to leave Florida State anytime soon, but we saw what he was able to do with Jordan Travis as like a rushing and passing threat, and I think Luke Kromenhoek has much higher upside than Jordan Travis. I think he has a chance to come in and be the starter after this next season. They bring in DJ, so he's going to be the starter this year. There's no shot Luke, I think, overtakes him, but I do think he has a shot to be the guy over Brock Glenn. I mean, I like Brock Glenn, but his upside is nowhere near what I think Luke Kromenhoek's could be. And I really do believe we could be talking about this kid as the best quarterback in this class just because of his tools. He just needs time to kind of refine those, become a little bit more consistent as a passer. I think his lower end mechanics from his footwork kind of struggle at times. He's not always consistent with that, and he's not always consistent with his accuracy as well. But if he can slowly improve on that, like, I think the ceiling, as Michael Jordan would say, is the roof for him.
Mm-hmm.
I agree for sure. I was going to bring up the wide receiver DB thing because I think that really highlights the athleticism that we're talking about here. And he's just been a very good high school quarterback. I mean, he's 26-3 over the 2 seasons where he started. Won the state championship, like you said, and really has pushed this team to another level, even more so than Garner did. So I think he's needs to refine some things. I do think he needs to put on a little more weight is one of those things that's a big thing for me. But yeah, superb athlete, big arm, everything you like to see out of a quarterback coming out of high school.
Yeah, his tape was fun to watch, man. He's explosive, just a big kid with a big arm and some significant rushing ability. Didn't seem like he's not Lamar Jacksoning people in the open field, but
Right.
But he can scoop, and I don't know. I like that he's playing this well with, somewhat less experience as a starter than some of the other guys in this class. So yeah, I think the raw talent there is really exciting, and kind of definitely looking forward to seeing what he does at FSU. It's kind of a good Jordan Travis replacement too, is he not? I mean, they're going to have a gap year, but same mobile, but has an arm and hopefully can develop into a little more than that.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple things I forgot to mention, too, with him is as a true freshman. So, again, he wasn't even playing quarterback, as Kyle and I have mentioned. He was at the IMG Academy, quarterback competition. He threw 68 yards through the air at the IMG thing. So, Malik Murphy gets all this love for doing it I think it was the Patrick Mahomes or one of the Manning camps where he did it through the air, through 70 yards. This kid did it also as a true freshman. He's not even as rocked up as Malik Murphy is. So I think, again, just shows how good his arm is. But then also I've actually had the the pleasure of talking to him a little bit here and there. I had a chance to interview him. One of the things I loved about talking to him is usually when you talk to quarterbacks like, oh, I need to improve my mechanics. I'm just doing this for the team. He harps so much on what he loves doing is actually watching tape and learning how to read defenses better so he can know where to go with the ball and kind of get the ball out so he doesn't have to rely on his legs, which I love because obviously as a fantasy, as people who love fantasy, we love the quarterbacks who use their legs. But I think if you're projecting him forward to succeed at the college level and possibly make it to the NFL, which is what we care about at Campus to Canton, you have to be able to read defenses and also be a really good passer. And the fact that he wants to improve on that, I think, is massive for him and his upside.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
love it. Kyle, you got anything else on Mr. Kromenhoek?
No, not really. I mean, I guess one thing landing spot wise with Florida State is like, who are they going to replace, Keon Coleman and Jaheim Bell and Trey Benson with coming in the future? So I'd love to see a good recruiting class out of them this year to help out Kromenhoek in his couple of starting seasons.
Yeah, that's a thing for sure. Other than the big kid, what was his name? Wilson, right? All of their good wide receivers were in the portal, right? So are people going to want to come there to play with, who they have now? I don't know. I think Jordan Travis was attractive for those guys to come play with. So, okay, let's move on, gentlemen.
All right, number 4, Julian Sayin, Ohio State quarterback. Now, Ohio State quarterback obviously was an Alabama commit. Look, I like Julian Sayin. I think he is right there with Dylan Raiola as possibly one of the safer guys to project forward with his ability to read the defense. Again, great pocket manipulation, which again, I think matters. It's probably something that a lot of people I think don't pay as close attention to, but your ability to avoid rushers, whether that's stepping up in the pocket or flushing out and getting the ball out, is massive to success, in my opinion, at the college and NFL level. He's not going to bring you anything with his legs. He's actually, in my opinion, a worse athlete than Dylan Raiola. So you're looking at almost as like a pure pocket passing prospect. What I will say for Julian Sayin is, like, I think him going to Ohio State, I would have preferred him stay at Alabama. With what Kalen DeBoer does in his way of calling plays and scheming wide receivers open, Julian Sayin is incredible at going through his reads. If you watch his film, like, you can watch his head moving, following, figuring out where he's going and distributing the ball, which I think is the best part of his game. He is in all essence, a point guard at the quarterback position. He does a great job of distributing the ball. And I think he would have thrived in that offense. I think he'll be just as good at Ohio State. Ryan Day doesn't like those rushing quarterbacks, so I think he'll be just as good there. And we know he'll have the weapons as well. Like, Kalen DeBoer did get Ryan Williams to stay, credible wide receiver prospect, but we know Ohio State always brings in these top guys, so he's always going to have the weapons around him. I think the ceiling for him is what you really have to be, I guess, in a way, I don't want to say scared of, but not. You can't feel as good as, in my opinion, as Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, and even Luke Kromenhoek, who I have all ranked ahead of him, because the arm strength is not nearly there. So we have him as a ball velocity at 50. Again, that's still really good. You're talking low-end guys are in the 40s. So he's still got that. But in my opinion, when he throws the ball deep, when he challenges that third level of the field, the ball loses some of that ball velocity. It still places it well, still has really good accuracy, but it loses some of that zip that I don't think any of the three above him lose that on. But in the short and intermediate parts of the field, in my opinion, there's nobody better in this class than Julian Sayin. His ability to distribute that ball, throw through windows that you don't even expect to be there, and throwing wide receivers open, or throwing those anticipation throws where, like, the wide receiver's coming across the middle and he throws it and you're like, where the hell is he throwing the ball to? And the wide receiver's right there. It's like, okay, he knew the wide receiver's route, and exactly, like, that is what he is masterful at. And that's why I do love him going to Ohio State. It's why I have him ranked over Aaron Nolan, because I do think he is the future starter at Ohio State. And because of that, he's going to thrive. I think he's arguably probably fairly safe, locked into a first-round pick because of what he can do with his brain and his arm in the short and intermediate parts of the field. I think it's On 3 has him comped to Mac Jones, and I think that's a really great comp because I think that's what he is. Like, and we haven't seen Mac Jones thrive at the NFL level. I think that's more Bill Belichick than Mac Jones, because we saw what he was able to do at Alabama, which was incredible. I think that that's what Julian Sayin is at the college, and then moving on to the NFL level, I think he has a lot of success. But, like, for fantasy player, I have concerns. I think he could thrive at Ohio State because he'll just be passing the ball to all these incredible wide receivers who will be helping him score points. But like going into the NFL, I just think he lacks that explosive arm and the explosive athlete part of it to really kind of separate himself from those typical low-end quarterback twos.
I think that's fair, but I think his short and intermediate passing is like so good that if he continues to develop it, like I think he will at Ohio State, he'll have a long NFL career where he can, not take big hits outside of the pocket and just always find the open receiver, hit him in stride, and just make his money in the yak game. And obviously, personnel is going to be a big issue in the NFL, and having good wide receivers is going to be really helpful for a guy like this. But I think he's one of those guys who can just have a starting role in the NFL for 10 plus years and really just be a long-term guy more than a maybe never like the QB1 overall, but a long-term like QB12, QB10 type guy.
Yeah. I thought of all the guys I watched, he right now, like he looks like a pro, just the level of polish he has. I mean, Raiola is, don't get me wrong, is polished passer too, but just like the smoothness of his release. And I don't know. You just see him so fluid out there, so smooth, like knows going through the reads, knows what he's doing. Ball placement is just immaculate, like all the time. Like I was really, really impressed with him more than anyone else in this class in that manner. There was one or two of the lower guys I thought actually did pretty well with that as well. But yeah, I just like I've gotten fooled before by the like polished pocket passer coming out of high school, but I'll be shocked if he is not really successful at Ohio State. I agree with you though. Like he seems perfect for Kalen DeBoer. Like, what are you doing, Julian Sayin? Not that Ohio State's like a step down at all, but like DeBoer like wants this archetype, but I don't know. I guess the rats fleeing a sinking ship thing at Alabama was probably tough for a lot of these kids.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of reports that he did end up meeting with Kalen DeBoer, and they just seemed to like agree that a parting of the ways was the best. I mean, they seem to really be high on, oh man, for the life of me, cannot remember his
Austin
name.
Mack.
Yeah, Austin Mack. Thank you. Yeah, who Colin's favorite player in the world. Yeah, they seem to be really high on him. So I think that maybe they said, hey, like we're bringing Austin Mack in. Maybe you're gonna have to challenge with him. And Mack definitely has a little bit of an advantage in being in that offense for already 1 year. Then he'll have 2 years on Julian Sayin at that point. So I think it made sense for him if he wanted to go into the portal, which he did.
Yeah. All right. You guys got anything else on Sayin?
Nope.
Okay, moving on.
All right, so my next quarterback after Julian Sayin's Miles O'Neal, committed to Texas A&M. I love this kid's arm strength and his upside. Baseball prospect as well, which you can see with the way he throws the ball. I do think he's got a little bit of an interesting delivery that he'll probably have to improve on moving forward. But I think he has all the talent in the world to do that. You can see on the graphic Kyle posted up here, 72% completion percentage last year. Really good. Now, it looks bad when you see, okay, only 2,100 passing yards, 20 passes. Like, that's not great. He played in a very run-heavy offense at the Hun School in Princeton, New Jersey, so that is why he didn't throw the ball as much. But if you look at what he was able to do in passing the ball, is extremely impressive. Again, 72% completion percentage. We have him as a ball velocity of, I believe it was 53. So again, right there on par with some of the top-end guys that I've been talking about. I think 52. So he can fire the ball all over the field. Really good arm strength. Doesn't struggle getting the ball down the field. Definitely can rip those throws. Where he struggles, in my opinion, is the accuracy. His ball placement's not good going deep. The accuracy wanes a little bit. And even sometimes in the middle of the field, I think he fires the ball, and when he doesn't need to, he probably should take a little bit off. I think some of that will come with just repetition. But I also think going into Texas A&M, I think he fits what Colin Klein, who's a new offensive coordinator there, likes in a quarterback. He is a rushing threat, not a massive rushing threat. He's not a guy who's going to bring you a ton of rushing yards, but he can do that. I was trying to pull up. He had, just 93 yards rushing last year. on 10 carries. But again, they really leaned on their running backs. He is a fairly good athlete, in my opinion. He's not afraid to take on those hits either. We saw in the Luke Kromenhoek video, he wasn't afraid to lower that shoulder and take on DBs. Miles O'Neill is not either. In fact, it takes a couple guys to bring him down at times. I think he fits into that mold really well, and I think he's the best quarterback on that roster outside of Connor Wigman today. So I think you can – I don't want to say he will be the starter, but I believe he will be the starter once Wigman goes into the NFL. So I like him being in that offense. I think the upside is there for him to possibly be – like, he's the last guy on my list that I think has, like, that first-round potential. I don't know that he's there yet. I would say all the guys above him, maybe minus Luke Kromenhoek because of the questions about the consistency and what he needs to improve. But like Julian Sayin, Dylan Raiola, and DJ Lagway, I would feel comfortable putting money on probably being first-round picks when it came time for them to go to the NFL. And then Miles O'Neill is like the last guy that I really believe has the traits to get there.
Got it. Roll some highlights. What do you got, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, O'Neill's definitely a guy that, like, I don't think was on a ton of radars when it comes to, like, 247 on-3 rivals. I think 247 had him as the – I have it pulled up – QB 45 in the country. So I think this is a guy that we're pretty confident has been missed, and we think Elko and Klein have found themselves a guy pretty impressive throwing the ball deep, like Matt said, and I think the athleticism is there. I mean, I think it's projectable. It's not special like the guys we've talked about, like Kromenhoek and Lagway, and I think that's why I kind of knock him. But I do think, he does have a good opportunity at A&M if he were to stay there, especially after Wegman leaves. Because I do agree that I think he's the second best quarterback on the team, especially after like Stowers left and Johnson left.
So why do you guys think the service is missed on him?
I mean, I think some of it is like number one. It's hard to scout all these guys. I'm sure with it, even with them having the people on staff that they do. I mean, it's easier for us to kind of go through and find these guys. I think two, again, he plays at the Hun School in Princeton, New Jersey. He's not playing the greatest competition, but again, I mean, if you're watching some of these throws, man, that's a great throw right there. I mean, he's got the throws. I think I don't know why they missed on him. I mean, for me, I don't feel as comfortable as I did. Actually, I shouldn't say it. I loved Aiden Childs last year. He was a guy that I was talking about. Now, he did make that jump up the services at the end of the year. Miles O'Neill hasn't. Like, I think, Kyle mentioned he's 45 for 24/7 Sports. I think On3 has him in the 20s. So, like, they have him a little bit higher, but not much higher. Like, I just think the arm strength and the talent is there where maybe they just didn't like the production. I really don't know what they don't like about him because I think it's all there for him to be a really good quarterback.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't stop us on all of these, but I think it's a good time to play a fun, like, where do you think these guys are going to go in drafts, the top 5? I would guess like Raiola is kind of just a little bit behind Lagway for you guys. Kyle, is that Matt that you guys are thinking?
Yeah. Are you talking like the freshman supplemental drafts or a startup?
I mean, both. It's supplementals. I guess Raiola is still an early, medium first-round pick, but startups, he's probably around behind Lagway, I would think.
I would think, and I'd be curious. I know Kyle said he just did that draft. I think Raiola is probably getting drafted right around the same time as Lagway because I think everybody views them as the top 2. The rest of those guys, I think, will be interesting. Like, I don't know how many people. I know, like, I was actually surprised to see that Kyle liked Luke as much as I do. Most of the company here does not, at C2C, does not like Luke as much as I do. So I don't think he'll go that high. Julian Sayin, I could see people liking him because he goes to Ohio State. I would expect he's the third quarterback coming off the board, but probably not until, if you're talking freshman supplemental, probably. Actually, I don't think it'd be crazy to say late second, early third, because this, running back class is just not good at all, in my opinion. The wide receiver class is top heavy, but I think it kind of wanes off pretty quickly. In a startup draft, I would think he's probably not being drafted till around maybe 7, 8 for most of the other 3 guys we just talked about. And again, I think Luke and Miles O'Neill, I think, will go much later, unless I guess you've got guys like me and Kyle in the draft, because I just don't think a lot of people like him. So, like, I'll be willing to take a shot on him. I brought up Aiden Childs earlier, who's a quarterback I loved last year that a lot of people were lower on. I was taking him. I was happy taking him 8th, 9th, 10th round because I knew nobody else was. I was like, I'm fine taking a shot on him. I do the same thing with Luke and Miles O'Neal because I just believe in their talents and their ability and them being the next guys up. But you are taking a little bit of a risk. Texas A&M with Elko, Colin Klein, and they could get a transfer quarterback next year, and then Miles O'Neal screwed. Same thing with Luke Kromenhoek. Maybe he doesn't take that step forward, and Brock Glenn does end up getting that starting job. So there's definitely a little bit more projection with those two, but I'd feel comfortable taking him in that 7 to 10 round range.
Yeah. I had Kromenhoek one spot behind you guys. I had him at 5.
Okay, so yeah. So you see, well,
247's up there, too.
3... I think, is it 24/7 Sports or on? I thought on 3. I know on 3 really likes him, but like the rest of our crew, like I'll pull it up because I have him rated. He's almost a tier 1 quarterback for me. The rest of our team, rest of our recruiting team that does grades as well, barely have him in tier 2. Like all of them are like right there. And we actually have 2 people who have him in tier 3. So like they don't love him as much as I have him on the verge of tier 1 because I think the upside is just incredible.
247 has him as a QB4 now.
Okay.
Maybe they didn't a few months ago, but they've clearly caught up.
Yeah, I knew on 3 liked him for a long time. I'm kind of surprised 24/7 Sports movement. I want to say he was like below quarterback 15. I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost positive he was much lower for them than what he is now.
Yeah. All right. Cool. That was really useful, I think. All right, let's rock through the next 5 and then kind of best of the rest. Oh. Let's throw up the mock.
I'm also doing a freshman mock, so I can answer some of these questions too. I took Lagway 103. Raiola actually went as the QB3 at 108, and Sayin went at 106.
Wow.
And then I took Kromenhoek at the 210. So who knows how far he would have fallen, but as the QB5 actually. So Walker White went in the first round, but then no other quarterback taken until the 210.
Well, I bet if you wouldn't have taken him, I wonder how far Luke would have fallen. I did a mock draft as well, and I was the one who took him in. I think I took him early 3rd. I don't think anybody else would have taken him had I not taken him there.
Walker right.
No Miles O'Neal yet. We're almost through 5. So
yeah, he sounds like he's going to be a value if you guys are on point with your assessments. All right, cool. Number 6.
So I've got Ethan Grunkmeyer going to, or I think it's Grunk. I don't know how to say it. I say Grunkmeyer. That might be wrong. But going to Penn State. 6'2", 190. Definitely needs to add a little bit of weight. But I think what he thrives at is his arm. Very strong arm. 53 ball velocity. Up there with, again, the best in this class, right up there with DJ Lagway, Dylan Raiola. Incredible arm talent. And again, one of the things that I really love, really good at manipulating the pocket. Now, again, this is another one of those guys like Julian Sayin, who you're not going to get much out of him from his legs. He is almost a pocket passing quarterback, but he thrives at that. And what I love about him is his consistency. Like, he has a very repeatable motion. I can't remember for the life of me the coach's name, but he got a lot of publicity for being Drew Allar's quarterback coach, like really helped him improve his throwing motion and everything. He works with Ethan Grunkmeyer as well. I don't know if Kyle agrees with this. We'll see. Again, we're right there in the same ranking with him. I don't think there's much that he needs to improve on in his throwing motion. Like, I love his throwing motion. I think he works in concert from his feet all the way up to his arm. He's constantly moving. He moves his whole body with him. He replants his feet when he needs to fire that ball in there. I think he does a really good job with his entire body moving in concert in his throwing motion. So I think footwork is there. Passing is there. Really good pocket passer. I think he does a really good job moving through his progressions as well. My biggest knock on him is he's just not a guy that you're going to get any rushing production from. I guess one concern with him, obviously, is Penn State. We'll see. I know they brought in the new offensive coordinator. We thought it was going to be different over last year. That didn't end up happening. James Franklin just seems to want to keep this offense in like the 1950s. So I'm a little bit worried about him on that side of things and really being able to produce as a college quarterback. And I do think we have to be a little bit concerned about Drew Allar maybe staying for another year in the senior year if he doesn't take that step forward. So we may have to wait 2 years to see him. But I do think, I liked, Jackson Smolik from last year's class as well, who was an Elite 11 player in last year's class. Grunkmeyer also made it for this year. I think Grunkmeyer has a better arm and just an overall better player than Jackson Smolik. So I think he is likely going to be the next guy up after Alar. But it does worry me, do we get to see him in the 2025 season if Alar goes to the NFL, or does Alar decide to come back for a senior year? And then we have to wait another year to see Grunkmeyer. But overall, I think really solid player, solid prospect, really good pocket passer.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like we're just going to see Drew Aller again. And I don't necessarily know if that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, I've pretty consistently ranked Drew Aller pretty high. I think I have him as the QB2 in this upcoming class now at this point. So I think that's probably a good thing. But we haven't seen the statistical success at Penn State. So that's a little bit of a concern. And like you said, we could end up seeing LR for a fourth season. But yeah, I like Grunkmeyer's throwing motion. I like his processing ability, and he does show some flashes of being able to like escape the pocket and make some plays with his legs. But it's not like the main part of his game, although there he goes running for 50 yards on the
ripping off 30-yard TV.
But yeah, I think he's a really good quarterback.
Yeah. He was one of the last guys that I watched that I really liked. And I thought he showed like really good timing and anticipation with his high school receivers, like was really locked in with good chemistry with them. I was kind of impressed by that. And I thought he had pretty good ball placement, good pocket movement. One of the other notes I had on him, you see him stepping up, you see him taking a step to the side and not necessarily completely bailing every time he was under pressure. And I like seeing that because a lot of the high school kids they're either rolling out or they're just dropping back until they get hit. So I thought there was a lot to like on this tape.
Yeah.
All right. Next one's from a little bit lower down the rankings on the services as well. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Walker White, Auburn's quarterback, going to Auburn. I think he's got a lot of potential. And he's a very fun player to watch. I mean, he is a dual threat quarterback, and he has all the arm strength in the world. Like, so I want to say it's 24/7 Sports. I'm almost positive it's 24/7 Sports. So I'd love to listen to their recruiting podcast. They comp him to Will Levis. And I think it's a very fair comp because he has got that, like, even the picture right there, he's got cannons for an arm. Dude's yoked. Like, he is a great quarterback and a very fun player to watch. My main concern with it, like, fire it in there, like what we've talked about with a lot of these other players, he can do. Like, you watch his film, he has those opposite hash throws, which I think really, Felix talks about this all the time, and I agree with him. I think that shows off arm strength more than anything else because anybody can really throw it deep. I mean, we've seen Peyton Manning throw it deep. It didn't have the strongest arm in the world, but it's those opposite hash throws, being able to throw it on a rope, that really shows off that arm strength. And Walker White has that. We have him at a 53. So again, right there with all those top guys in the class. He can challenge all three levels of the field, does throw really well in the short and intermediate parts of the field as well. Really good arm strength. It's the consistency and the accuracy that I really struggle with. And that is where I don't know how much he improves on that. He showed a massive improvement in that senior season. So in his other years as a junior and a sophomore, we're talking 53% completion percentage. That's not good at all. But then he did take that massive step forward in his senior season with a 62% completion percentage. I believe, won a state title with Little Rock, Arkansas. If he didn't, he was at least in the championship game. I can't remember if he did. But 6'3", 210. What I love about him is I think he's very projectable as a college football asset, and that Hugh Freeze offense, what we've seen with players like what he's been able to do with guys who can run the ball like Walker White can, I think you're looking at an absolute fantasy stud. But moving to the NFL level, I think he really needs to improve on his footwork and mechanics and just becoming more consistent and accurate as a passer. And he's going to have a chance to do that because they've loaded up at wide receiver and bringing in guys like Cam Coleman who have those massive wingspans. I can't for life me remember the other player, but they brought in 4 guys. There was 2 5-stars and I believe 2 4-stars, there was 1 slot wide receiver with the other 3 massive wingspans. So even if Walker White throws it in like the near vicinity of them, they'll have the ability to go get the ball. So I think that's really going to help him. He's going to be a very fun player to watch. And I see Kyle's got him a little bit ranked higher. I think I would bet Kyle's going to say he's got the tools to be a QB, not QB1, but a first round quarterback in the NFL, but he's really got to improve on that consistency. That's my biggest fear and why I dropped him here. I think everybody else above him for me in my rankings outside of, well, even Luke Kromenhoek showed the consistency, at least passing. All those other guys, like, I don't have any real questions about them as consistent passers. Walker White's the one guy on this list that I'm like, I could really see him not improving and really being what Will Levis is. And I think 24/7 Sports nailed that with that comp. Like, if he's Will Levis, really fun college player, but like, what is his NFL upside is my biggest concern with him.
Yeah, I think all of that's fair, but I think Auburn and Hugh Freeze is like the perfect situation to drop this guy into, especially with, as you mentioned, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson being two wide receivers that I know I'm very high on. I think the C2C crew is very high on as well. And I think those 4 stars are Bryce Kane and Malcolm Simmons, who I honestly haven't gotten to yet, but I do like those top 2 guys a lot. They bring in Robert Lewis from Georgia State in transfer portal too. I think he is an excellent college wide receiver. So I think if Walker White sees the field early in his career, which I think is a very large possibility considering Auburn's quarterback room, he's going to have guys to grow with, and to he's going to be able to really like mold himself in this Hugh Freeze offense with these other young guys. And I think that's going to really help his college career. And I think Hugh Freeze is going to be able to coach the best out of Walker White. So.
Yeah, I was worried about Auburn, but I think Hugh Freeze has done a lot of service for other young quarterbacks under his custody, right? I mean, who was the kid a couple of years ago that was getting the first round hype,
Malik Willis.
Play.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
even Caden Salter, he did really good with Caden Salter for that 1 year. So, I mean, yeah, he's a good coach to be a quarterback for. Like, I don't think he gets to love Lincoln Riley and Ryan Day do, but he fits that mold of what he's looking for. I mean, and Kyle mentioned it. It's Peyton Thorne is that room right now. And then Holden Grenier, who we talked about earlier, who was the starter over Luke Kromenhoek for a year. Like, I don't think it's unfair to say Walker White at least has the highest upside of everybody in that room. So, like, there is a realistic shot we see him playing as a true freshman.
Yeah. I know you guys said he wasn't consistent, but there's a lot of nice throws on this highlight reel too. Like, a lot of them just like.
That's why it's a highlight reel.
Yeah, I mean,
I know. Just saying, like, he can do it. It's just obviously you got to get the mechanics right and do it consistently.
Like I said, the consistency is the only, like, he's the one in my top 10 that I feel like I could be dead wrong on in having him down here at QB7. Like, I think you could argue he's better than Luke Kromenhoek if he stays more consistent. Like, I think those two are right there. It's just been like, we've not seen him take that small step forward every single year consistently. But yeah, I mean, he throws a beautiful ball. Like I said, dude's yoked up. He's a fun player to watch. Like, I think he has a chance to be a really fun player. I'm just worried about the consistency.
Got it. All righty then. What's next?
Next up for me is, now I can't get my, thank you for throwing that up because I couldn't get my list up, is DeMond Williams, who I absolutely love. And if he was like 2 inches taller, I think we would be talking about him as like a top 5 quarterback. Like 5'9", 174.
I'm right there
like,
with you.
I comped him to, like, I know a lot of people hate when you say stuff like this, but like, I think he has a lot of Kyler Murray in his game. We don't have him at C2C with like this high-end ball velocity. I want to say it's down. It's like 49. I was trying to pull his up really quick, which I think is wrong. And I'd be very curious to see what Kyle thinks. Like, I think his arm strength is right up there with some of the best cuts. Like, it's not up there. It's not Dylan Raiola's or Ethan Grunkmeyer's, but I think it's closer to Luke Kromenhoek's. Like, I think he's got a really good arm. We have him at 21.1 miles per hour. Extremely fun player to watch. He beat Dylan Raiola. He beat Malachi Nelson in high school at I forgot where he played. I know Dylan Raiola was at Chandler, and I can't for the life of me remember where DeMond was at now, and it's going to drive me crazy. But thank you, Basha. And at Arizona, his father was a cornerback at Michigan State, played high school football as well. His just overall game is incredible. And we saw him, I don't know if anybody watched the Under Armour All-American game. I thought he looked the best there as well. The big question with him is going to be, obviously, because of his size. If I'm being honest, I think 5'9" is generous. I don't think he's 5'9". I think he's probably 5'8", especially when you watch him behind some of those offensive linemen. But he does such a great job of manipulating the pocket and finding those throwing windows. And what I love even more about him is the landing spot following Jeff Fish to Washington, because we saw what he was able to do with Noah Fafita last year in that offense, and him and Ted McMillan having that great duo and what they were able to do. And I think Damon Williams has a lot of those traits. I actually think he's better than Noah Fafita. So I think him being there with Fish in that offense he's going to be a fun fantasy player. I think the NFL upside's probably limited. Like I said, I think at best he's probably 5'8". I know people will say, well, you got Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Drew Brees, who are all right around that 5'10", 6 foot. I think, again, 5'9" probably fairly generous, but he's going to be a really fun college player.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, if we were ranking for CFF right now, I think he might be QB1. He is exactly what Jedd Fisch likes, and him following Jedd Fisch to Washington, he's like Noah Fafita, but he's on crack. It's he can run too. Is kind of the thing. So I mean, he had an 11-second 100-yard dash in high school, so he's definitely got the speed. He rushed for 1,000 yards as a senior. Can throw on the run a little bit. Needs to maybe refine that a little bit more, but he can do it somewhat at this point. And I think he's really accurate throwing deep too. And I think that's going to be very successful in Fisch's system. And I think he's going to have a lot of success at Washington in his collegiate career. And that's another quarterback room that's practically wide open. I mean, they did end up keeping Will Rogers, but like, who cares? So yeah, I'm super excited for what Damon can be as a college quarterback.
Yeah, this kid can scoot.
Yeah.
So it's him escaping the pocket on that one play a couple times ago. He has like 3 men draped over him. He just squirts out.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got an absolute cannon, too. Like, he can throw the ball all over the field. That's why he's just going to be such a fun player to watch. Like I said, I know Kyle agreed to me. Like, if he was just 2 inches, like, we would, I think, and I feel like I've said this a lot, but I'm going to continue to say it, we'd be talking about him as possibly being the best quarterback in this class if he was just a couple inches tall. Like, he's that good.
Get that boy one of those bone stretchers.
Yeah, there we go, yeah.
All right. What else we got here?
Oh, that's it on me. Where would you take him in a draft, Kyle?
In like a startup or a supplemental?
Both. Because like I think in a freshman supplemental, I think I'd be willing to take him as early as the 3rd, 4th round because of what I think him doing in Fisch's offense. And I think you could get him later, but I absolutely love him as a CFF asset. But like, where would you be willing to take him?
Yeah, he went 307 in this mock with obviously just freshmen, no returners. But I think 3rd round is fair. I mean, you're talking about a guy who could be a CFF QB1 for multiple seasons, especially because we're talking about how his height's going to limit his NFL upside. He could have a really good college season and still come back and have another really fucking good college season. So, I definitely think he's worth a lot in C2C drafts. Obviously, if I was in like a CFF Dynasty League, I'd be drooling over him. But, I think 3rd round, late 2nd is very fair for Damon, a C2C supplemental.
All right, let's keep it moving.
All right, my number 9, a lot like Damon Williams, Haas Haney, who I think is going to be also a stud at the CFF level. 5'10", 185. I think that's actually probably fairly fair. He might be 5'9", but I think the 5'10" listing is right there. Dynamic athlete. So I don't know how many people know of Nate Johnson, who I believe is now at Vanderbilt, but incredible running quarterback, was at Utah for a couple years. But you guys probably know Marcus Vick, Russell Wilson. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about here. If you watch TCU a couple years ago with Max Dugan, then making the national championship, I think Haas Haney is him on steroids. Like, he's a much better runner. I think he's a better passer. I think he's got better arm strength than Dugan does, right up there again with the high end. So ball velocity, we have him at 50. So he comes over that low end threshold just barely, but still comes over it. 21.7 miles per hour. So we're just watching Damon Williams run at 21.9. Haas Haney at 21.7. Did it in Texas at Aledo, won a state championship. Aledo is in the highest. It's 6A school, not far from where I live. Was able to play some of the best competition in Texas and win a state championship. This kid can do it all. Really good passer as well. I don't know what I see of him as like I'm sorry, they were 5A, not 6A. Elite it was. I don't know what I see of him as like an NFL guy, but really quick throwing motion. He seems to get a lot of it from this upper body. I don't think his lower body works as well with him when he's passing the ball. I think he could clean that up a little bit, but like even though doesn't use his lower body sometimes in those throws, fires the ball with a lot of velocity, really good accuracy at times, 62% completion percentage last year, which is right around like that, what Walker White was able to do in his senior season. So like he could improve on that. But again, with what he's able to do with his legs, like we're talking about a guy who, again, could be just a dynamic CFF player. And I mean, we saw that with Max Dugan. Max Dugan, his senior year, I believe, finishes a top. I know it sure was at least a top 12. I think a top 5 CFF asset. And Haas Haney, I think, is better in every area of his game. So I don't know if he starts this year. I would love him to, but I think moving forward, we could get 3 years of just like elite CFF play from Haas Haney with TCU.
Yeah, we talked about like CFF coaching, quarterback fits, and I think him and Sonny Dykes is another excellent one that where he's going to get the most out of Haney. And I do agree. I think he has a really good throwing motion. I think the ball comes out quickly. He typically puts it on time as well, and he can throw that deep ball. Maybe he needs to get a little stronger, but I'm impressed with how he like changes his delivery too. He can throw the laser. He can throw it with a little bit of touch. And like you said, he's just an insane athlete. I mean, I mentioned Damon Williams ran an 11-second 100-meter. Heine ran multiple 100-meter dashes faster than that. As a junior, his record was 10.9, and as a senior, he ran 10.68. Or as a sophomore, rather, he ran 10.68. So, yes, super quick, super fast. I think he's a guy who's going to be very successful for college fantasy. And then, like you said, if he goes to the NFL, it's butter. I mean, that's just like icing on the cake if you drafted him in a C2C. So, I really like Haas Heine.
Yeah. Especially where you're going to get him, because now this is a guy you're talking about, like 6th round supplemental, 7th round supplemental, and the services have him quite a bit lower. So people that aren't as tuned in as you guys are, or they're using someone else's, rankings, might not even be on their boards. Like you're not drafting your QB 25 in a supplemental.
I think 247 has them at 12 now, so he's another late riser. So
yeah, I think he's rose a little bit for them. I don't remember what he was at for on 3, but I know 24/7 Sports moved him up a little bit.
Yeah, 12 right now.
But yeah, I mean, he's a fun player to watch. I mean, right there, nice throw on the run too. Like he can do it all and should be really good in that Sonny Dykes offense.
Yeah, I love the fit there too, for sure. I mean, we've just been looking for the next quarterback in that system, and if he can get that job right away, I will be pumped. All right, one more top 10.
Yeah.
Most people's top 5.
Yeah.
Bruening, as your friends would say, explain yourself.
Yeah, Aaron Noland, who I like, southpaw, really good distributor of the ball. I'm going to say a lot of the same things I said about Julian Sayin to Aaron Noland. Ryan Day has a type. Obviously, the only difference is he is a lefty where Julian Sayin is not. And I know this is probably unfair to say, but I'm just going to say it. Right off the bat, the lefty part worries me a little bit. We just don't see a lot of left-handed quarterbacks thrive in the NFL. So right there, I think, unfortunately, a small knock on him. He is also very much like Julian Sayin, a very good point guard. You're not going to get much out of him with his legs, but his ability to read defenses, throw with anticipation, throw wide receivers open. He can challenge all 3 levels of the field, knows where to go with the ball. One of the things I really loved about watching him is he checks down 2 players, which you don't always see high school players do. Like they will see their stud wide receiver like, oh, I'm just going to throw it to him and see if he can catch the ball. Aaron Noland is not afraid to go through his progressions and check down, and he was very, very good at that. And if he would have come out after his junior season, I think we would have been talking about him as this incredible prospect. 73% completion percentage, passed for 4,000 yards. What was it, like 55 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, just incredible, incredible junior season. But then last year reverted back to what we had seen in these other 3 years in high school, back to just about 2,000 yards passing, only 22 touchdowns with 9 interceptions, a 66% completion percentage. He was 64 as a sophomore, 62 as a freshman. I'm worried that, I don't know, there was a change at offensive coordinator going into his senior year. And I do think that you have to account for that. I mean, he's a high school player. We're not talking about Patrick Mahomes getting a new offensive coordinator. He's a high school player. Changes in offensive systems definitely, I think, affect those guys. And so maybe that's why we saw such a massive dip. But he just looked like he struggled as well as a senior. And I don't know if that junior year was more of what he is, if that was an outlier. I think the more reasonable thing is it's somewhere in the middle. But what also hurts him, it's not necessarily that I don't like him as a player, but I think Julian Sayin's better. And so I don't think him and Julian Sayin being in the same class now at Ohio State, like the chances of him starting there are now probably pretty slim. So he's going to have to transfer out. Where does he go? Because that's my biggest concern. Like if he ends up with a offensive minded head coach that's going to let him kind of distribute the ball and do this, I think he's got really good talent and could possibly end up being an NFL guy. But like right now, we just don't know what his future is. And I would find it very hard to think that he beats out Julian Sayin. So if that's not the case, his future is not at Ohio State. And that's my biggest concern with him, is why I dropped him. I think he scares me a lot. Like if you look at what I talked about earlier in the show with like a Malachi Nelson, where all of a sudden it's like Malachi Nelson ended up at Boise State. He was our top quarterback last year with USC. Could that end up happening to Aaron Nolan, where he ends up at like a G5 program and not even in the Power 4 anymore? And I think that will hurt him CFF-wise and possibly moving forward into the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's hard to see him not landing at a P4 school, but obviously you brought up Nelson. That completely negates everything I have to say. But I have a question for you, because I know you're tapped in with Ohio State. Do you think there's a possibility that Noland is gone in the spring window, or?
I do think there is that opportunity. And if I'm him, I would do that, because, I mean, I think there's going to be multiple players who transfer out, unfortunately. I think one of Devin Brown or Lincoln Kineholz is probably gone as well, because I think Will Howard's going to win that job. You don't bring him in not expecting him to win it. So one or both of those guys transfer out. If both those guys transfer out, I don't know if Nolan stays. Good or bad, all these guys come into these schools thinking they're the best quarterback, right? They all believe in themselves. So I think Nolan probably goes in there saying, well, I can beat Julian Sayin. I'm a better quarterback than him. Don't mind him having that mindset. I think that's a great mindset to have. But I would not be surprised if he decides to stay, thinking he could beat out Julian Sayin to win that job. And if he does, then we unfortunately don't see him transfer out till next year. If he transfers out this spring and ends up at a P4 school, then I think he will. He'll move up my rankings, because then I'm like, okay, cool. Like now you're probably stuck behind somebody for a year. You're going to learn that offense, and then you take over. Cool. Then we get to see you play, and I'm all for it. It's really the Ohio State thing that I have major fears about, if we ever even see him play, at least not at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I'm just a little more hopeful that he'll get out, I think that's kind of the discrepancy in our rankings here. And, but yeah, I think he's an excellent quarterback. He's very impressive on film. A lot of good things that I liked about him. I mean, he was also in the Elite 11 finals. So, I mean, he has that pedigree in terms of like the coaches liking him. And like, I know a lot of the 24/7 guys are saying he was even better in person than he was on film. So I think Nolan's a very balanced quarterback who has a lot of skills that translate to both the college and NFL levels. So I think, if he finds himself in a starting gig somewhere with an offensive-minded head coach and in the Power 4, then I think he's a future NFL player. So, I mean, it's just kind of the hope. It's kind of the hope and pray if you're taking Nolan in drafts, is that he leaves. And maybe, like I said, we'll see that happen in the spring, and we'll know for sure. But for now, that is the hope.
It feels like Stroud and McCord 3 years ago.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
You came down on the right side of that. You profited, because Stroud got pushed down a little bit.
Yeah. If you were on the opposite side of me, we'll put it that way, because I love it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to bring it up.
That's all right. I'll own it. I was an LMI.
wasn't a shot at you, Matt, but it is.
No,
I do
no,
get some joy out of it. I definitely like drafted Stroud, I think, in drafts with like your friends in that crew, and then reaped the profits. Maybe with you. I don't know. You were in that one with me for a few years.
Oh, I'm sure you did. Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're like an hour and 10 in. Maybe just like let's pick a couple people out of the the second 11 through 20 to talk about, and then maybe throw out one sleeper each that you guys are into.
Yeah, I mean, my next, the best of the rest is on the screen here. You can see Ryan Puglisi, Will Hammond, Michael Hawkins, Jaden Davis, Tyler Cherry, Elijah Brown, Aiden Glover, Isaac Wilson, Jaden Glasser, and Michael Van Buren. I'll talk two real quick. Jaden Glasser, Central Michigan. I think he has a chance to start, obviously, and for the life of me, can't remember what his name is. But I don't believe their quarterback, who was a redshirt freshman last year, is that good. Jaden Glasser, good passer, also a decent rushing quarterback. I think he could be fun for a CFF player. But for me, and this is going to be a little bit controversial because I don't know when he'll start, it's Michael Hawkins Jr. going to Oklahoma. I love this kid. I saw him 2 years ago at the Elite 11 when I actually got a chance to see Jackson Arnold and Austin Novosad at the Dallas Regional. And this kid was extremely impressive for me. Really good arm strength, quick delivery, really his whole body, I think, moves in motion. Delivers. He throws a little bit of a high release, but I don't mind it as much. And he is a dynamic athlete. Now, we only have him again at 19.1 miles per hour. Or I'm sorry, 20.6. Okay, I was a little bit worried there. 20.6. I think he's a little bit faster than that. Ball velocity at that 50 range. So, again, right on that cusp. Played at Emerson. So he transferred to Emerson last year. He was playing... Oh, for the life of me, I cannot remember where it was before. That was the same school that Kyler Murray went to in high school. But he transferred to Emerson with some unfortunate stuff that happened off field with some people who treated him poorly when it came to racism. But last year, again, in 5A Texas school, passed for 3,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and ran for 1,100 yards. The play that got him a lot of note would have been last year. Again, I really wish I could remember what the high school was that he went to. They played, now I'm forgetting the high school as well that he played. They came over from California, one of the best schools, high schools in all of the country, and he ran like a 70-yard touchdown against them. And I was watching that game. It was a great game for him. I think he has all the upside in the world. I think he could be a really fun player, not just for college football, but also does, I think, have a chance to make it into the NFL. Obviously, the big concern is going to be Jackson Arnold, who's going to start for 2 years. So you're probably not seeing him for 2 years, but I still think you get 2 years of college production out of him and then possibly some NFL upside. Because he's also listed very high. Well, it's not like he's not DeMond Williams or Haas Haney, who are low, like, 5'10", 5'8"-ish. Michael Hawkins, 6'2", 200. Like, he's got the NFL size, but also running at that same speed as those guys.
Yeah, definitely a Jackson Arnold problem, though. I think Kyle's got Arnold as his top college quarterback, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to do. I can't.
No, not at all.
You can make arguments for other people, but like, there's no way you can conclusively be like, that doesn't make sense. But and then who?
Yeah. I like a lot of these guys. I think 2 guys that really stick out as being in like good systems and like possibly taking over kind of quickly are Will Hammond and Tyler Cherry. Obviously, Hammond at Texas Tech is in the same recruiting class as Micah Hudson, who we both love at wide receiver. So we'll have the weapons if he ever takes the job and plays in that air raid offense. So I think he can have a really successful college career. Tyler Cherry playing for Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. They bring in Curtis Rourke, who I only think has 1 year of eligibility left, so possible sophomore starter there. But then my favorite guy on the list is actually your QB 20, Michael Van Buren. I like Van Buren's fit in this Jeff Levy offense at Mississippi State. I think it's a match made in heaven between these two. Van Buren's biggest successes were in the RPO game. He's a valuable rusher. And he fits, I think, exactly what Jeff Levy wants to do, kind of similar to a Matt Corral or a Jackson Arnold that we saw last year. And I think it's just going to – and in addition to that, there's like nobody in that QB room too. So we could see Van Buren taking off pretty quickly. And he was very successful in Texas. I mean, he won the 6A Division II state titles. So And then he played in the Under Armour All-American game recently, and I think he was super impressive during that game and the practices leading up to it. So I like Michael Van Buren as a future CFF star and possible NFL guy.
Nice. Loving it. All right, guys. One real late sleeper, 3-star guy, someone further down the ranks from each of you. Matt.
Yeah, I'll go Trevor Jackson, who I believe is still not even committed yet. He was committed at one point to Florida State, 6'3", 190, absolute cannon for an arm. I love watching this guy throw the ball. He delivers the ball very clean. I love his mechanics, throws with a ton of velocity. Now, he's not consistent with that. Like, he doesn't have a repeatable motion. His best year of a completion percentage was, I believe, at 59%. Which is obviously not great, but I think he's an incredible, talented athlete. Like I said, I believe listed at 6'3", 190, had over 800 rushing yards as a senior. We had him tracked ball velocity-wise at 55 miles per hour, and this was coming off a shoulder injury as well. So I think he can throw the ball even harder than that. So we're talking about that upper tier 50s, closer to the 60, where it's at like elite range. I'll be interested to see where he committed. I was trying to pull up or where he commits to. It looks like Ole Miss and I know Pitt was in on him for a while. I'd actually love for him to go to Pitt because I think he could start and play for 3 or 4 years there. I don't know why he hasn't committed anywhere. There were reports, maybe some off-field stuff. I don't know if any of that's true, but I think he is a guy who has a chance to be really good. He was an Elite 11 guy too. So typically when you see those guys at the Elite 11, like they have that upside. So it's weird to me that he hasn't committed to a school. I'm very interested to see where he ends up going, but he's a guy I don't think anybody will be talking about. So you could legitimately probably take him as your 45th round pick in a C2C startup draft, and a guy who I think because of his arm and his legs could be a stud for you on the CFF side of things.
Love it. All right, Kyle, one out of you.
My guy here is definitely not getting drafted at a C2C startup right now, and that is Eastern Michigan commit Jay Stuckey. I think he's listed as 24/7's like QB 101 or something, but he's a guy who rushed for 855 yards last year, threw for 2,847 in Indiana, completed 72.5% of his passes. I think he throws a really good deep ball, has that high completion percentage that we like to see. And I mean, superb rusher of the football as well. So I think he's everything we want to see in a MAC quarterback. And I think he can really find some success at the lower levels of college football that lead us to fantasy points. So I am excited about Jay Stuckey. He's a guy who, just had a really great senior season. And I don't think that's reflected in 24/7 or like anyone else's rankings. Yeah, like I said, 72.5% completion percentage, 31 passing touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, and then 855 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns as a senior. So really impressive from him.
Love it. Loving it. Guys, this has been so good. This has been so awesome. I think we really brought some actionable content to the viewers here. If you guys followed along with us this far, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. We need your support. Please make sure you're following Matt it's such tiny writing on my screen, at Sports Fanatic MD, I think, just because I know it. There we go. And make sure you're following me and Kyle. And if you're not subbed to Campus to Canton, it is worth your money. One of the only things that I will actually pay for in terms of fantasy football content. Matt, you got any parting shots tonight, my friend?
No, thank you guys so much. I had a lot of fun talking. It's nice to see, that you guys agree with me, because I don't always get that at Campus to Canton. So, I appreciate you guys agreeing with me on most of this stuff. Makes me feel good. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, always great to see you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wit and your wisdom with us. Kyle, you got any parting shots?
Yeah, I mean, Matt sent over his top 10, and I was like, hey, these are the exact same 10 guys I have in my top 10, just in a slightly different order. So I think we're definitely on the same wavelength here.
Cooking with gas tonight, the Devy dose. All right, everybody, we appreciate you so much. One last call, just give us a subscribe, and we'll see you all next week.